down to the project is those people that earn between $33,000 and $60,000 a year are really just being forgotten and washed away in New York City. And a lot of those are Black residents. I mean, Black residents are hemorrhaging out of Harlem right now at a disgusting rate. So, and this is honestly because of the lack of legislation that we're doing to protect the people that if they stopped working for an hour, this city would cease to,
Welcome back to JFK Values. I should not have to do this, but we're going to critique people's values and how they get in the way of distributing actual value to people who need it, deserve it, are owed it both near and far. I'm your host, James Felton Keith, and this is being brought to you by the Keith Institute. This is yet another critique on inclusionism, where we like to say individuals are at their best when they identify with a community, and of course, communities are only at their best when they identify all of their individuals. So let's get right to it. All right, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Inclusionism. Obviously, I'm your host, James Felton Keith. We have a really special episode this week. This was not our regular planned guest for the week, but we have some interesting things going on in Harlem with regards to equity, real estate, and just there's been a bit of activism going on just around the neighborhood in general, but really around the city as we think about affordability and just what's happening in these days and times. And so I'm bringing on a young activist, CEO of, as you saw in the banner, Young Atlas Productions, and one of the producers of a group called Defend Harlem that I recently attended a protest with, I think last Friday. The days are kind of running into each other for me. Sometimes I forget that it's actually Friday right now. But what I want to bring everyone's attention to is this latest article in the Amsterdam News, A Rage in Harlem, which I think is also, the title is kind of fly. I think it's a play on A Rose in Harlem, the song. But either way, we're going to talk more about this particular project, what the Rage in Harlem is. And so with that said, we're going to bring on Kai and just dive right into it. Kai Cogsville, thanks for joining me today. Where are you? Where you located today? You seem like you're out and about.
Yeah, I actually have a doctor's appointment in a second, so I'm downstairs in the lobby right now. I got a checkup in a little bit, but anything I could do for you in Harlem, I'm all about it. So
we appreciate that. I'm like, anything I can do for you in Harlem. Like we're following the youth. So for everyone again not familiar, I've not talked to Kai before. We did not pre-strategize on this conversation. I've seen his work from afar, and while he is a grown-ass man, in my opinion, one of the new people. I think we're about 10 years apart, Kai. So that said, I saw a lot of activism happening. I saw just through friend networks, actually through Maria Davis, who founded Mad Wednesdays, and they meet once a month over at the Shrine, sent me the flyer for the protest you all had last week, again, for everybody, about this new 145 ONE45 project on 145th. If anyone is not familiar with me, which I think most people, at least per this show, are, I live right across the street. And I'm pretty pissed off about the green lighting of this particular project because I was in the room when it was agreed upon 2+ years ago about what this project would represent. So I want to give a little context for how I understand it, and then Kai, I want to hear what you and your org and what everybody else are thinking, because again, we're following the youth. I've had about a dozen arguments, 12+ in the past weeks, over this particular project after you all's protest last Friday. But for anyone not familiar, there was a new proposal for a new 3-building mega complex on 145th and Lenox, 145th and Malcolm X, 145th and 6th, depending on who you are, how old you are, and what you remember this street being called. So anyway, it was negotiated by the former city councilwoman, Kristen Richardson Jordan, and a large cohort of activists that the building would be 50% affordable, there be a portion that's deeply affordable. There are more than 120 some odd apartments dedicated for union members. These are firefighters, these are civil servants, etc. All that has gone away in the current agreement for the building to go. And what we kind of got back, and I was shocked. I wasn't paying attention because, as I tell our elected officials, we're hiring you to be a watchdog and do our work so we can go to work, because we have to figure out how to pay this rent. I am a renter. The rent is too damn high. It's a problem in general. And so then I see news about 2-3 weeks ago that this project is greenlit, and I saw what Defend Harlem was producing and asking people to come out for. So, can you give us sort of your perspective, a little history on the project, where you think we should be? Let's go where you and your folks want to go, because I think this is where we should be in general.
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, one, thanks for having me. And two, I want to make it clear, like, that our protest and the rally and kind of the information that we're trying to give out is really in regards to our city officials and our political leaders. You know, a developer has a fiduciary responsibility to their investors and everything. So this was really not against the developer. I want to make that clear. I think in terms of affordable housing in New York City as a whole, our local politicians have let us down tremendously. It's been really a slap in the face to New Yorkers. And the New Yorkers we're talking about, and I'm going to go macro and then I'll micro this down to the project, is those people that earn between $33,000 and $60,000 a year are really just being forgotten and washed away in New York City. And a lot of those are Black residents. I mean, Black residents are hemorrhaging out of Harlem right now at a disgusting rate. So, and this is honestly because of the lack of legislation that we're doing to protect the people that, if they stopped working for an hour, this city would cease to, function, So that's kind of where we're coming from. And then in terms of this project, I mean, it just seems like they should have more housing that really hits the income targets of people that live in that area, right? I understand Yusef Salaam is trying to do what he can, and there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Sure. But the community is really not, I don't think, in that conversation close to enough. So it seems like Defend Harlem has filled a void of helping educate in a simple way. Here the issue.
Oh, I think we lost Kai. As he said, he's at a doctor's appointment. And
hey, my bad.
And he's back. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
No, you're all good. Keep going. Keep going.
Well, I think what I got cut off saying was Defend Harlem's kind of been like filling that void of educating people on, here are the problems and here are some of the solutions. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for this project is getting subsidies for this project. Like, why isn't Harlem getting subsidies? The rates are there. Like, yeah, you know how many Black people are leaving Harlem? I mean, this is the Black capital of the world, and our local officials are not giving us any subsidies. The developer will do it. Any developer is going to want to make a profit.
Yeah, I was arguing with an older activist in West Harlem again about this, and we disagree about a lot of things, but one thing we did agree on, and I like that you brought it up around the fiduciary responsibility of the developer. We both agreed, and I thought we were going to not and have a bigger fallout about this particular issue, but we agreed it really wasn't a problem of the developer. It was, a failure to advocate for our subsidies by the elected, and really the coalition of elected officials tapped into this particular negotiation, because I think it goes a bit beyond the city council member, because I think the borough president, who's a friend who I had on this show, the assembly member and senator and the Congress member have some say on what's happening more broadly, not only with this particular building, but what might happen with buildings like it. My biggest fear for this particular project being greenlit in the current state that it is, and I want to be frank, I think we need to protest it right here on this damn corner, is what will happen on 135th with what's going on around Lenox Terrace. If people are not familiar, a much broader swath of land, and there's plans for projects surrounding that. But then I also think about what's happening in the Heights, in Inwood. There's a building that we used to protest that they built on top of an old library up on 207th a while ago. It was a large cohort of us protesting it, and we were able to get a project on top of that building that's 100% affordable, deeply affordable apartments for people making under 30K a year. And to the numbers that you rattled off, for anyone who's not familiar with the alarming rate that people are leaving, not only Harlem, but Northern Manhattan in general, we have about 10,000 plus 10,000, but I'm gonna round it down to 10,000 Black people that have moved out of Harlem since, in between these past two censuses. I don't know if you pluralize that way. Is it census I? Anyway, 10,000 out, 18,000 white people in. And that is not just because, and I was arguing with another activist about this who represents 100 Black men. And he told me some story about a friend of his that had kids and they moved to Jersey. I was like, this isn't about your one story, right? 10,000 people, that's much broader than your friend had a kid and moved to Jersey. 10,000 out, 18,000 people in. Now, it's not about that we don't have enough space for new people coming in. I get it's too expensive to live in Chelsea, and we got white people coming up here. But as they do that, the type of apartments that we make available to people are what dictates who gets to come in, right? And so we could see both of those rates grow. We could have seen 18,000 in and 18,000 more people come back. I'm totally fine with that. But my point in bringing up Inwood is we saw a project of 100% affordability happen up in Inwood. And we know that these types of projects are possible. And they built it on top of a 3-story library, which means we can build up and still invite more people in. But I want folks to think about that. People between $30,000 and $60,000 a year are the people primarily moving out of the city. Those are people like us who don't have access to the jobs that are paying, 120, 150, 250. That's number one. Number two is there's a double amount of people moving into this particular neighborhood versus the people who built this neighborhood and made it famous. I think Harlem is the most famous neighborhood on the planet. I was just in Denmark and Sweden, and everyone was like, we want to come to the Black Harlem. I was like, yes. And you see it, bro. They here, they're tourists. They had Abyssinian Baptist Church in buses, like.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think we need to do more, but I think we need a united front to tell the politicians what we want. I think one thing that's been missing, and it's not a community board issue, is a sustainable coalition that is available to, and let me know what you think about this, because I know some of the sisters that you have in your coalition, like Parents Supporting Parents, Tanisha and company, and others, are available for this. But I think this is really a call to everyone else who lives up here. We need more hands on deck to be watchers of the decisions that are getting made in a lot of these public meetings, so that we can publish it, so that people can analyze, how we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, or to use your term, subsidy for all the value that we provide to not only Harlem, but New York.
No, definitely. I think coalition building is key. I will say, though, I think, I've only been really doing this for the last 2.5, 3 years. And to see kind of how there's so many people on the front lines, I feel like we're getting to the right place, right? Like, to look at that article that came out, a lot of those people were at the protest that you were at,
Yeah.
So I do think it's happening. I do think behind that, though, is just the simple resources, more fundraising. So there's more of a grassroots organized effort, and people can spend some more time on these issues. I think that's key. But like you said, I think we're in a good situation. I just think we need to have like really simple, tangible asks. And if we're all on the same page saying, and look, the data's there, like neighborhoods in Williamsburg, these new developments, they're getting subsidies to build these projects. Why can't Harlem, the most historic neighborhood, and when is the last time you heard of us getting subsidies? That's for housing that's not Section 8 or different type of housing for people that are professionals that are really working hard protecting the city. That needs to happen, and that will set an important precedent, I think, throughout New York in general. But Harlem needs it. Like, we're kind of like I think, at the 50-yard line of, like, where it's going to tip, either good or bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, and I like your 50-yard line analogy because I feel like everyone is available to pay attention to what we do here, and I think not that you were asking a question, but to put an answer to I think the broader question that you threw out. I think we're not getting the subsidies because we're not asking for it,
Right.
and quite frankly, even though there are some, I've been doing this particular work up here for about 15 years. I think, when I first got here, I came to New York. I was raised in Detroit. I came to New York to start a tech company. I was like, if you're going to do it, it's a fintech company. I was like, you got to do it here. You got to be a fintech here. You got to do New York stuff here. But then after a while, the angry black man just, boils over in you and you go, I see stuff I want to do. It reminds me of, and I think you're a great example of, I was talking with this other younger brother who's 30. He might be a little older than that now, but I remember he would come to me about things that weren't happening and things he wanted to do. And I was like, bro, it's wide open if you want to participate. You just can't necessarily walk in people's house and tell them it stink and then start picking up. You walk in and say, hey, can we do a thing together? I was like, there are activists here who have, some of them have, fizzled out. Some of them are exhausted. Some of them don't have new ideas. Some of them just don't have new energy. And I was telling this young brother, I was like, you can do extraordinary things if you want to stay and play. And he moved out of the neighborhood shortly after he came to me with his complaints and sent me on Instagram what he was complaining about. We led a really big protest here after George Floyd was murdered and turned that into the Juneteenth march that we moved down to Central Park to invite people in. But I was like, bro, you got to stay and play. And so I really think what you and the people at the protest and the people at the Defend Harlem offer is kind of a new set of legs, a new reason. Sometimes we need a reason to come out and participate. So I think as long as y'all are here saying we have reasonable solutions, we have tangible asks, then it gives everyone a reason to rally, quite frankly, behind you. Some old man is not the reason that we're going to kind of change the world. It's going to be because some 30 or 20-year-old says that we absolutely need it. So anyway, so we shall. I think we need to come together and work on that. I'm going to put some information in the comments about how everyone can join and donate to Defend Harlem, and just new actions that I think will be taken around this particular building, because I do want to get back to the old deal. So I'll be clear here, not only for you, but anyone watching this. It is my objective to keep this particular building back to the old deal, which the developer agreed to, which was published in 2023, which was 50% affordability. And then consider a dozen more projects like it. For anyone not familiar, it's a 950 plus unit project. I think we need about 10,000 new units. That's just maybe a dozen more buildings across the area. And we know that the developers are available to pursue it. We just have to have our electeds advocate for the subsidies.
Exactly. And the developers will do it. The developers are not going to change. They're going to keep, if there's an opportunity to make money and do a return on their investment, that's not going to change, right? But us kind of having those simple asks of, hey, this is what we need subsidies for. Like you said, us coming together and really having a simple ask, not a bunch of everything bagel ask, just one plain bagel ask. I think that's what's going to get us there. And then we need that leadership in city council to really fight for that as well. Because it's happening in other neighborhoods. They're a little bit more organized than us right now, but we should take a page out of their book and see how they're demanding things from their politicians. It's really too backwards, I'm sorry to say, in the Black community, where the politicians are leading us, not the other way around.
Yeah, agreed. On that note, I know you got a doctor's appointment coming up in about 6 minutes. I want to give you that time back. On that, everyone need to go to the doctor. Like, go get checked out. Especially if you're moving into your early and mid 30s. Like, check it out. Make sure. I will say this: I've had like lower back pain, little sciatica pain. Stuff catches up over time. I play young on the internet, but it don't. Everything don't really work like that on the inside. So everyone go get checked out. If you don't have health care, tap into Harlem Health and Hospitals. We have programs for you here that the rest of the country may not have because we have a really unique tax base at the municipal and the state level. But we'll talk about that later. But Kai, thank you, brother. I think yeah, you've given us a reason to do a whole hell of a lot more. So really, thank
Yeah, and I'd love this to be the the start of some more work. I really appreciate seeing you, and I think every time we do this event, it's kind of gaining its own energy, right? I
you.
get to
Yes,
meet someone like yourself. Other people get to get connected, and you see, okay, we're not so alone on these issues. There's a lot of like-minded people out there, which is giving Harlem, I think, a lot of hope.
yeah. I brought one of my friends who's on TV to the show. She's on a TV show out in Long Island, and but she lives right here on 132nd and Lenox, and so I was talking about being a black woman, how hard it is, how expensive it is to stay in New York, etc. And then she met Tanisha, and I was like, meet this sister, hear her out. And I was like, y'all have the same conversation all the time, but she didn't have as big a microphone as you. I was like, you pair with her, magnify that same conversation. Let's see where it goes. So yeah, at the next protest, we bring in 20 more people. So yeah, I think that's the objective. We keep growing it bit by bit until there is a fever pitch where they have to listen to us and
For sure.
yeah.
And last thing I wanted to say is we're gonna also have a public meeting too, just on an organizational front to
Yeah.
kind of get more people connected and tell them kind of where we are, because people see what's happening on Instagram, but there's a lot of moves that we make behind the scenes that we like to inform people about. So that's going to be happening soon too.
Word. Okay. Let me know. Yeah, we'll push it out for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some fixings. We got some infrastructure here and there in the organization that I organize called Equity Democrats. So yeah, we want to figure out how to combine resources and Voltron this thing up. But
Amazing.
But thank you again. Do you have a website or anything just to rattle off for people to go and hit at least Defend Harlem or other projects you got going on?
Yeah, defendharlem.org. And the Instagram is at defend.harlem. If you go to that and then you go to like the links in our bios, there's a lot of videos that really dive deeper into some of these issues, and that's where you can find all the latest updates and everything. And then my email and contacts in there too. If anyone else ever wants to reach out, I'm super accessible.
Okay, perfect. And so we'll put those links in the bios. This will be on all platforms soon, mainly on Spotify, but we'll go everyone else where else. And yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Kai, thank you again.
Thanks for having me. Talk soon.
Yeah.
Take care.
Subscribe to Inclusionism articles and podcasts at the Keith Institute.
If you're enjoying this discussion and you want to do a deeper dive on some of the concepts that we're talking about here, I'd encourage you to get a couple of our books from the Inclusionism series and the Ethics of Personal Data Collection series. Here are three of my latest books. This first one is the Ethics of Personal Data Collection and International Relations. It's a bit of an academic book for IR academics and students. This is a follow-up to that book called Personal Data Collection in a Post-COVID World. And this is probably the easiest read. Data is labor, which really talks about the economics of how we distribute value via people's personal data, how we can legislate, how we can regulate that in, and what some of the broader economic and legal implications are.
At the Keith Institute.